Okay, let's continue on to 30. So again, we have a fraction here, so I'm going to put a 3 on the top and 2 on the bottom. Okay. Those will cancel out. Same thing over here, 3 on top, 2 on the bottom. So I can do this two ways. Remember, I just have to multiply on the top and divide on the bottom in any order. So I can do 12 times 3 and get 36 divided by 2 is 18. Or I can do 12 divided by 2, which is 6, and 6 times 3 is 18. We'll have a greater than, equal to. Alright, so we have 18. And we'll have a closed circle. That's going to be going greater than's to the right. Alright, 31. Let's do some distributive property. We'll do negative 8y plus 2, negative times a negative, positive, less than 10. Subtract 2 on both sides. And we'll have greater than, because we're divided by a negative here, right? So divided by a negative, switch that sign, and we have 8 divided by negative 8, which is negative 1. So we have negative 1, greater than, and to the right. Alright, so we'll have, let's see here, variables on both sides. Let's do the opposite. Add 2w to both sides. And then we're also going to add 3 to both sides. So we get the 3 minus 3 to equal 0, and 2 minus 2 to equal 0. We'll have 7w greater than 14. Divide both sides by 7. And we'll have 14 divided by 7, which is 2. So we got 2 greater than, open circle. Okay. Let's go to 33. Alright, so let's distribute here. We'll get 8 plus 4w. And we went over this in class already, but just in case you weren't here, we looked at this and said, what happens when the variables on both sides cancel out? Okay. So if we set this up, right, we have the unique situation where we have 0 here, we have 0 here, so the whole side is 0, greater than. And 0 here, 8 minus 8 is 0. 4 minus 4 is 0. So we're left with just zeros. And there's no variable here, so we don't have a traditional regular answer. So you have to ask yourself, is this a true or false statement? Is 0 greater than or equal to 0? And since we have the equal to, it's a true statement, because 0 is equal to 0. So since this is true, our final answer will be all real numbers. And with all real numbers, if you're doing a check, you can check with any number because every single number is an answer. That's what all real numbers means, is that every integer, positive, negative number, decimal, fraction is an answer for this inequality. Okay, and on 34, we have its counterpart, I believe. So we'll have, maybe that's the one after. Yeah, so let's solve this one by distributing first both sides. Yeah, it's going to be the next one. So I can tell this is not a special case because we have different numbers for variables here. So this is just going to be the traditional, do the opposite on both sides, inverse operation. Alright, so we have 0 here, 0 here, cancels out. And we have 8 plus 3, which is 11. And we have 38. here. So we can divide both sides by 11. And 11 does not go into 38, and 38 does not reduce at all, so we're just going to say our answer is 38 over 11. It's okay to have fractions sometimes. Okay. Now let's go back to the other special case, 35, and that is where we'll see again the variables canceling out. Get positive 6 here, by the way. All right, negative is positive. So we'll have, bring down the 3p and the 6. These are on the same side, and they equal 0. So we're left with just 6 is less than 6, which is not true. 6 is not less than 6, right? So that's a false statement. And whenever you have a false statement, you conclude there's no solution. So these two are opposites of one another. One is true, 0 is greater than or equal to 0, and that's all reals. And if it's false, then it's no solution. Okay. Let's look at 36. Where's the first mistake? Okay. And it does say first, so that means there could be multiple mistakes, and you have to find out where the first one is. So let's just go through it. Again, you can multiply on top. 2 times 10 is 20, and we have 20 over 5. That's good so far. 2 times 5 is negative 10, and we'll have over 5. So this one is good. 20 divided by 5 is 4, so that's correct. 10 divided by 5 is 2, and we have the minus, so that's correct. Then if we solve this, we would start on this side and do the opposite, so it would be minus 3x on both sides. Alright, now minus 3x would give us 4 minus 3 would give us 1x. Right? Now what they did is they added 3x, so this 7 is wrong. So this is the first mistake. Should have been a 1x, and they added instead of subtracting. And we could stop at that point, because that's the only mistake we're looking for, is the first one. Okay, same idea here. Look for the first mistake. So we have negative 3 times 2 is negative 6, that's correct. Negative 3 times negative 4 is negative 12, that's correct. Right hand side's the same, so that's good. Next we would subtract 3x. Alright, and negative 6 and negative 3 is negative 9x, so yep, that's correct. Then we would add 12 to both sides, and negative 6 plus 12 would be positive 6, right? And here they have negative 6, right? So there's the mistake, so the mistake is on C once again. Okay, let's go over to the next page, 38. Okay. Got some compound inequalities here. So let's, with these, we have 3 parts. We have left, middle, and right. So always start where the variable is. Here it's in the middle, and we have a plus 6, so we're going to do a minus 6. We're going to do it to all 3 places. So 4 minus 6, minus 2. And we got 0 here, so just the x is left over. And 13 minus 6 is 7. Alright, so going down here, which of the following solutions are correct? And you notice that it says in bold, select all that apply, meaning there's more than one answer. And you'll find out in the final that there's going to be 2 of these that are correct. So on that one, you're going to bubble in 2 correct answers. So what numbers are between negative 2 and 7? So negative 3 is not. That's too small. 0 is. That's between negative 2 and 7. And 5 is. That's between negative 2 and 7. And 8, that's too big. That's above 7. So we have 2 answers, 0 and 5, because those are both between. Remember, this syntax right here means between. Right? So what numbers are between those two? Okay, there we go. So that's the only question that will have two answers on the final. Compound inequality. So very similar to what we just did. Just remember that if they're facing away from each other, that it's going to be an OR statement, right? So we just fill in the two inequalities. So this is a -5 right here. It's between -4 and -6. And there's 8. It's a closed circle, so I know that's a less than or equal. This is a open circle, so that's a greater than. We have 5 less than or equal to, x less than or equal to -5. And we have x is greater than 8. Okay, so that's our compound inequality. Compound, remember, just means putting two inequalities into one. It's like two different inequalities on one graph. When they're connected, it's very similar to 38 above. So we have -8 here. It's going to be between these two numbers, right? So -8 is a small number, 4 is the big number. Open circle is less than, and closed circle is going to be less than or equal to. When they're between, they're always going to be less than. So they never point to the right. And then we'll just have a variable in the middle. So this means all the numbers between -8 and 4. Okay. All right, let's change over to some graphing, some slopes. So slope, remember there's several kinds. We have positive, we have negative, right? We have horizontal, which is a zero slope, and we have the vertical, which is undefined. So this one's going to be negative since it's going downward, right? So you can always say m equals negative, and then the slope, the rise and the run, will be, let's see here, pick a couple points. There's the y-intercept. Here's another point that goes through the square here. So it's going to be down 3 and right 2. So -3 over 2. 42. This is positive, all right, because it's going up. So we have right here and right here be some good points. How about up 1 and right 2? Here we have the vertical, so that's the undefined. Vertical is undefined. Here we have the horizontal, so that's a slope of 0. And here we have another negative. Now you can use the 2 points they gave us, right? So that's be down 1, 2, 3. And then to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But then make sure to reduce it. Divide top and bottom by 3. That's -1/2. But we also could have just picked our own 2 points, because you'll have the same slope no matter what 2 points you pick. I don't have to use those 2. I'll get the same answer no matter what 2 points I pick. So if I picked these 2 points, I would have gotten down 1 and right 2, which is the same thing. So any points will give you the same exact slope. Okay. Go next page, 46. Find some slopes using without a graph. Okay, so the way we did this is we did the slope is going to be the y's over the x's, right? So we figure out how far is it from -2 to +4, right? You have to go +6. So the slope is going to be 6 over, and then how far is it from -1 to -3? You'd have to go down 2. So over x. So 6 over -2 would be a slope of -3. Okay. The goal is to do this without the graph. Of course, you have some graphs down here, so you could kind of lightly pencil it in and figure it out the way we did on the previous page as well. Here we have a couple points. We used a formula here, and that was to subtract the y's on top and the x's on the bottom. So we have negative 2 and minus 4 for the y's. Right, those are right there. And we'll have 1, and careful, it's minus a negative 3. So this minus is not the same minus as the formula. You have to have them both. So we'll have negative 6 over positive 4, which reduces to negative 3 over 2. Always reduce the fractions and leave them as improper. On number 48, similar. Now you might remember if these are the same, you can kind of predict what's going to happen ahead of time. But let's do the formula anyway. Let's do negative 3 minus 8. The two y's are on top. And on the bottom you'll have 6 minus 6. Right? So that will be negative 11 over 0. Now, if you can't remember what that equals, try to do a little sketch of the graph. So 6, negative 3 would be right here, and 6, 8 would be up here. So you can see we're talking about a vertical line. And if you can remember that vertical lines are undefined, you can put together that, yeah, when there's a 0 underneath, it's an undefined slope. Undefined. If the 0 was on top, then it would have been equal to 0. Alright, let's do some graphing. Slope and y-intercept. We got the slope, the b. That's where you begin at negative 4. So start at negative 4 on the y-axis. Always on the y-axis with this. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we're going to go up 5 and right 2. So up 5 and right 2. And we could do that several times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over 2. And straight line should go through all your points. 50, we're missing a couple numbers here. So we have x minus 1, so we know the y-intercept is negative 1. And now we're starting here. But what's the number in front of the x here? Well, it's a 1x, which is the same as 1 over 1. So this puts us up 1 over 1 several times and takes us all the way to the end. So it's missing the slope, it's 1. Y equals 8. Now this is missing the slope, so we use a 0. So this is like 0x plus 8. And since it has y, you only go through the y-axis. There's no x, so you cannot go through the x-axis any time. So we go up 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And since we're not allowed to go through the x-axis, right, there's no x in our equation, that must mean our answer is a horizontal line, because that will never go through that x-axis. Okay, 52. Okay, we have an inequality here, so it's going to have some shading. We're missing a y-intercept, so we're going to use 0, start at the origin. So we're going to go down 1, because it's negative, and then right 4. So down 1, right 4. And this is a solid line since we have a line underneath, so I can use a solid line. Okay. And greater than is shaded up. So this entire side, we're going to shade above this line. Okay, moving along. We're going to need to subtract 4x on both sides. So I'm going to get negative y is less than negative 4x plus 5. And I have this negative here, so I'm going to have to divide by a negative 1 everywhere. Okay, which will flip the sign, which changes the shading. Anytime you divide by a negative, you've got to change the shading. Okay, negative 4 divided by negative 1 is positive 4. and 5 divided by negative 1 is minus 5. So I'm going to start at negative 5 on this one. Down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Up 4, right 1. Up 4, right 1. Okay, we're going to have a dotted line. There's no equal to, and it's shaded above. Okay, so greater than is above, so I just go anywhere on the line, go up, and shade that side. Okay, let's graph x is less than negative 2. So there's only an x here, so we can only go through the x-axis. Alright, so not allowed to cross the y-axis at all. So go to x equals negative 2, that's right here. And this is going to be a dotted line, still dealing with inequalities, so I'm just going to go straight down, negative 2, right? And less than is going to be to the left. So this is the only time where we don't shade up and down. Alright. Let's see if we can get a few more. Okay, so let's continue. Solving for y. So I'm going to try to get y by itself here. So I'll first subtract the 4x on both sides. Okay. And then I'm going to divide both sides by whatever the coefficient of y is. In this case, it's a 3. So I divided everything by 3. Alright, so I'm going to go to plus 2. And I'm going to go down 4 and right 3. Down 4, right 3. Do that a few times. And we're going to have a solid line. Okay. And again, it's greater than, so I'm going to shade up, shade above. Okay. Just a few more. Again, let's subtract the x here. Do that first. We'll have negative 3 equals, okay, so we're back to just equals. That means no shading anymore. Divide by negative 3 everywhere. We'll have y equals positive 5/3 x minus 1. Okay, so we'll start at negative 1, and we're going to go up 5 and right 3. Up 5 and right 3. Up 5, right 3. And just the equal sign, so just everything's a solid line. So only the inequalities do we do the shading. 57. A couple more, very similar, just to get extra practice. Okay, so we'll have negative y equals 3x plus 3. And the negative y is the same as negative 1, so let's divide everything by negative 1. So we have y equals 3 over negative 1, x minus 3. So start at 3, and we're going to go up 3, and since it's negative on the bottom, it's going to be left. So up 3, left 1. Up 1, 2, 3, yeah. There we go. Straight edge, equal sign, no shading. There we go. Okay, just a few more, a couple more here. Find the y-intercept. Okay, so y-intercept without a graph. So that's somewhere on this line, on this axis is the y-axis. All of them have an x-coordinate of 0, right? So the way we find a y-intercept without a graph is you plug in 0 for x, right? So when you do that, really this will cancel out because it equals 0, and you just have to divide by coefficient, and we'll have y equals 4. Remember, we used 0 ahead before, so this is y-intercept will be 0, 4. So that's how you do the y-intercept without a graph. Plug in 0 for x, and kind of the opposite for the x-intercept. We want to find where it crosses on the x-axis. Every point on this axis, on the dark line, has a y of 0, right? Because up is positive, down is negative, so right in the middle is 0. So we just plug in a 0 for the y, like the opposite. So that means 7 times 0 is 0, and we're just left with 3 times what is 21, and we'll get x equals 7. So 7, 0 is the x-intercept. Okay, that concludes our review for the final. Go ahead and watch these videos several times. Make sure you know how to do all the problems on your own with no help. Please do not just copy them down. You have to know how to do it on your own to be successful. Okay, good luck.